I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green, and I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit, cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly, better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder, and I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you live every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, and most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that on every single show. And what do I mean by that? I say that because I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I proudly fly that American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. Happy Thursday, Ryan Muhammad. What it do? I love it. I love it. Corey Buchan, Thirsty Thursday, coming in hot. I got a guest for you guys here today. We're going to talk about some stuff that's going on in the industry about payments and everything, and kind of, people going out of business and what goes on with all of that stuff. Robert Cowton, good morning. He said 7 days to book as much freight as you can prior to December 22nd, planning for 2024. He's watching over on YouTube. Tracy St. Clair, good morning, over on YouTube. Stuart, the hobby trucker, also over on YouTube. Good morning. Catherine Whitehouse, happy Thursday. But yeah, you guys, we're going to get into some payment stuff here and some all this fun. No, well, this isn't fun at all, actually. It's actually pretty insane, some of these numbers that we're seeing out there. But I thought, who better than to have my friends over at Denim? They're the preferred financial partners here over at the Freight Coach, and especially my good friend Sean, to come back on the show to talk about all this stuff. What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Morning.
Dude, good morning to you. I am I'm excited for this conversation, because this is something that, because you were on probably like 4 or 5 weeks ago, maybe it's been a little bit. And we were kind of talking about this because as people are inevitably going out of business right now, what happens to all the money that they're owed, right? The carriers who've hauled this freight, and there's a lot of stuff that I think that's up in the air on this. And, because I've seen this come up on some of the Facebook groups that I'm involved in transportation here, of not at this scale, but like, hey, this broker went out of business. I'm owed like $5,000. How do I get my money? And, the article that made me reach out to Sean and Emily over at Denim was from FreightWaves, and it was talking about Convoy, because the numbers that I had read in this article are like, they're massive, right? Like one of them is like $160,000 is what a carrier is owed. So before we kind of like go through, like, where, like, how do we start here, man, with this? Because this isn't just one carrier who's owed. We're talking a lot of carriers who are owed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars across the board, it looks like.
I would say the first thing, Chris, is that we got to stop meeting like this. All right. Like, it's not good for carriers out there, right? It's like not good for brokers when this goes sideways with shippers. I feel like we're at a funeral and we're like saying what's up at a wake. I mean, it's not good. The thing that I would say to folks out there, like, number one, like, you can't get $160,000 into the hole on a single shipper or on a single broker and not have like a diversified book that you can draw from. So I think that was the thing that stuck out to me when I read the FreightWaves piece, which was, it was a well-written piece, well-researched. Like, it was really good information for folks out there. Keep our rule of thumb, right, is like, if 20% of the source of your business is from one place, more than 20%, you got to get back on the phones, right? You've got to keep those business development calls going. You've got to look to drive down that concentration, because the apps are awesome, right? Like, it's super easy. You finish one load, here's another, right? They know your preferences. That's all really well and good. But the more you lock in a single source for your business, the greater risk you have when something goes sideways and you've got to lay off staff, or you end up being
Yeah.
on the hook for tons of funds, right? Like there's a lot of that goes into it that I think is my big lesson, right? When I read that piece.
Yeah, because like I'm looking at this and the example that like the one that stuck out to me, you know, 100 there's a company who's owed $160,000 from Convoy. And before we, you know, go into that, like, because I, you know, you look at some of the optics of it and how like just the technology was sold. So it's like, do any of these carriers even have any claim to these funds, right? Because the business is out, they're done. Yeah, there's a creditor it listed off in here that's kind of handling a lot of this stuff, but like I would, this is just my assumption. I would argue that the majority of that money, you're not going to see any of that money at all because they're tech, like, what are you going to sue? You can't sue a bankrupt operation, right? Unless maybe I'm wrong, but like doesn't seem like you can sue anybody for unpaid invoices if they're no longer in business.
Yeah, you definitely can still you could
Okay.
there's definitely still recourse for carriers out there. I would say. Like the path is not easy, right? And
Yeah.
it could be long and you've got to make a cost benefit decision on how much you're owed versus like what it's going to take to go out and get it. So in a situation like this where a broker goes under or doesn't pay or whatever, like the first thing you do is file on their bond. Now in a situation like Convoy, millions of dollars, not super applicable. But that's like the first thing you do. You just have to like check that box. The next thing is that you go straight to the shipper that you hauled the payments for because you still have a right to the funds for that load because you still did move the freight, right? The third thing you do is you may need to get some help, right? Find a collections agency that's really sharp that can go out and help you. We have referrals if you're looking for somebody. We've worked with folks like this in the past. And then the last step is the judicial system, right? Get an attorney, you know, shell out all the capital that's required for you to be able to do that. And that can take a long time. And it's really got to make sense for you and for your business to be able to expect to recoup those funds. So
Yeah.
that's the list. The in this sort of situation, going right to the shipper is your cheapest and best bet. So
Yeah.
what I would do if I was a carrier, right, is to go through all those bills of lading, right, all those proofs of delivery that you have for the shipper that you worked with, call the number, get in touch with the AP department, explain to them the situation, and let them know that you still expect to be paid, right? And
Yeah.
you need to be able to make right on this freight.
So is this something that, you know, from your guys' perspective, you guys would do like, because obviously you guys as a factoring company need to get your money. Cause like, and I'm bringing this up because that's what, you know, the subtitle of this is that Convoy owes their factoring company this. So is that something that you guys are going to do on behalf of your clients where it's like, you're going to go and pepper that shipper like, hey, listen, you owe us this money because that money went somewhere, right? Like, and I want to be clear. This doesn't mean that the shippers who hired Convoy to move this freight aren't paying these freight bills, right? It's kind of like probably a lot of money goes up in limbo and there's going to be you know, you might have gotten paid within 30 days before and with all how all of this stuff kind of shakes out, it might be 120 days before you might even see this money. So like, are you guys out there advocating for your customers in this situation to find out like, hey, what's this resolution look like? When are we going to get our money? Because this, I mean, we're talking, you know, one of them was 160 grand, like you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, this
Yeah.
is like our responsibility. Yeah. And so we put people on payment plans. We try to find ways to be able to leverage other freight that we might be moving for them. We've got contacts within these shippers. Like I mean, if you're a carrier, if you're a broker and your shipper or your broker that booked that freight for you kind of goes sideways, you're dog on a bone, right? And so we play that same role on behalf of our clients because like we are mutually incentivized to make sure that everyone's made whole, ourselves included, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. Bill McIntyre watching over on YouTube. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Zena, happy Thursday, Chris and everyone. Jesus Gill, let's go. Brandon Caldwell, morning to you. He's watching over on YouTube. Emily Watkins, what's going on? Happy Thursday, y'all. Brandon also says that carrier has a right to collect over the NOA when the entity has filed for bankruptcy or dissolution. And, but I do want to bring up a point that you had mentioned there, Sean, about like the monetary amount, right? Because like, and I bring this up because again, you guys, the real side of business is you get screwed sometimes. All right. Like nobody advocates for it. Nobody goes into any relationship. Maybe some people do, but I don't. But I've been hosed out of, probably, I'll put a number out there, probably about $7,000 of stuff. And if I wasn't setting aside money for a rainy day, probably wouldn't have made it through those months, right? Because the reality of bootstrapping companies is you need the money to get paid. But I contacted my attorney. I'm like, hey, this is like 120 days, and whatever that looks like. And my attorney, although I love them and I hate them at the exact same time because they're phenomenal to work with. But he had told me, he's like, listen, Chris, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, I would offer, he's like, this isn't legal advice from the show, you guys, but this was just a conversation that I had with my attorney about my specific example. He had told me, go out and try and settle, try and get something out of it, because he's like, I'm just going to be honest with you. My fees alone exceed what you would get paid. He said, because he's like, he laid it out there. It's like, this is going to be anywhere from 3 to 6 months before we even get anything. And he's like, just based off of my fees alone, he's like, it's going to surpass that. So he told me, he's like, try and negotiate an amount to get payment and then go with that. And then I still got a fucking $200 bill in the first time that call, but still different. different phone call. Yeah.
That the cost of the legal system is incredible, right? And I think smart advice is take something, get a plan, be amenable, be open, and be persistent. I think those are all like big factors when it comes to making sure that you're able to collect. Taking no for an answer, right? Some people might not be able to afford that, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the hard work that goes into moving freight, and that nobody's out here doing this for free. So, something's better than nothing, and get your something, right? Like that's what I would say to folks.
No, and especially at this point, right? Because I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're not going to come back. This is just, because in this article alone, there was only like 3 examples. This is three of probably 5,000, 10,000 carriers that are owed money of some amount for it. And it, and again, it's just like, I think it's the preparation for how long is this going to take? And, I think what's concerning to me, and again, and this is going to see like kind of how this shakes out legally is, because Flexport bought the technology, and now there's carriers out there saying Flexport is running the exact same lanes that Convoy was running for a different rate. And this is all in this article, you guys. So this isn't speculation. This is all listed out here in this article. So again, it's going to be interesting to see, is Flexport potentially liable? And again, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but is Flexport potentially going to be liable for this? Right? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time. I'd have a hard time seeing that was the case. I think that would definitely impact the purchase of the tech, right? If all the liability of all of this capital has to come with it, right? So if I was the smart attorneys at Flexport who did the M&A on this work, I would definitely make sure to firewall that off. If I was them, I think the acquisition was also very specific. It was the technology of Convoy, right? So those words were not chosen by accident. That was a very, very purposeful decision that they made.
No, for sure. And, again, this is just all information that's in this article, you guys, that we're discussing right here. But, I think that this is something that a lot of carriers are going to be experiencing, even from brokers that aren't going out of business, right? Because I hear a bunch of back channel chatter all the time about, oh, this broker is going to lay off people, that broker is going to lay off people. And, you do start to think, because obviously you guys, cash flow is everything, right? Like Stuart the hobby trucker here over on YouTube, he's saying one of the biggest issues as a carrier starting out, very limited amount of people that will work with you until you have some good age under your belt. It's challenging. And then he also says, And then when you have all of your accounts receivable with only a handful of those brokers, it's a big risk starting out, one claim away from financial nightmare. And, again, you guys, these are very real thoughts that go on in a lot of companies. And, I could only imagine because there's always this talk about the brokerages that are going under and stuff like that. And again, I'm not trying to advocate for anything other than this is just the reality of what's going on in the world right now. But all of the carriers that are out there that are like, am I not going to get paid? Because when you see distress from a company, especially from a headcount reduction perspective, my mind would instantly go, well, shit, they owe me $15,000. I would probably start looking at some of these as I probably need to stop hauling freight for those specific entities if they are in the universe or the news of conducting layoffs. I'm not saying that there are cash flow issues or anything like that, but I think a lot of the signs were kind of out there this last year with some of these companies mentioned in this article that kind of came to light, and then it was hold on, we have a Band-Aid, and then here we are now. And you got to look at this as, from a business owner's perspective. You have to do what's best for your company, right? You have to protect your asset. And that's what this is, right? Your business is an actual asset. You have to protect this. The money that you're owed is, it's your responsibility to recoup it. And when times are tough out there right now, when rates are what they are and freight volumes are what they are, you kind of feel like you're stuck in a corner with some of these situations. And I just don't want to see the after effect, because everybody talks about the headline, right? Like, and this is a very catchy headline and catchy article, but these are very real people that are in this article that are possibly going to, not make it through if they do not get any of this money back.
Here's what I would say too. And I think this is the signs are important, right? The layoffs, news articles, stuff like that. Not every brokerage gets
Correct.
a headline treatment. Something like that happens. The faster that you are committed by the broker to get paid, the less risk on you as that cash is outlaid, right? So if I'm a carrier and I have a choice to work with the broker who's going to pay me in 3 days and one who's going to pay me in 30 or 40 or whatever, bird in the hand, right? Versus a bird in the bush. Like, I would definitely encourage folks to, the longer that the cash is due to you that's outstanding, the higher risk that cash is not going to be there. So definitely opt for situations where you can get paid in a couple of days, cost effectively, of course, but like get paid faster versus like wait things out. I saw, I mean, you probably saw it too. There were some tweets this past week about how the other digital brokerages out there are extending their terms, which used to be a couple of days, out to like 30 plus days. Just like bad signal, just bad signal. If I'm a carrier out there to be able to wait that long.
And and again, like I would, well, let me ask you this, Sean, is there a way if this might be in the contract out there, like the carrier broker agreement, but say you haul the load and, for a specific broker that you're starting to see some headlines on, and you agreed to normal pay terms, can I go back in and be like, hey, I want to do quick pay on this? Do you think like, is there, or are there going to be like, hey, no, you didn't say that beforehand?
I think depending on the broker, they would. I mean, our clients, that happens for us all the time. Like, we have our clients will either hop into a chat and say, hey, I have this scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Can you do it tomorrow? And like, that stuff happens all the time. I think you can do it in our app. I feel like as the product guy, that's something I should know. But like, I'm pretty sure you can go right into our web app and like speed payments up. And I think that is a great way to mitigate your risk, right? And like, that was the first thing that we did when we saw some of these major brokerages start to turn, is that we immediately started calling on open invoices before the pay terms even happened, because we just saw the writing on the wall and we didn't want to be the ones left.
Yeah, man. It's because that's the side of all of this stuff that's never talked about. It's the same thing with the fraud and the double brokering. Nobody ever talks about the carrier who actually hauls the freight that's getting screwed over, right? It's always it's the headline, it's the catchiness. And this is the thing is a lot of drivers listen to this show. A lot of them listen to this show. A lot of them message me out there about these specific topics. And it's like, they don't know what to do in these situations, right? Like there are tens of thousands of dollars of invoices out there, and they're starting to see it. And then, they're also, it might not even be the brokers that they're working with, but now they're going to start looking at this and being like, well, damn, if there's going out there across all of the industry, maybe I should start getting quick pay now. So, that might be something to look into. And that's why I asked that question, because some brokers might be like, well, dang, I don't even know. I have a factoring company. I don't even know if we can go in and do quick pay after they had not agreed to do it on the front end. Right. So I think that might be something to look into for those drivers out there, where it's like, hey, if you delivered a load, again, it might be worth a couple of percentage points off the invoice to get that money right now, just in case. Right.
Yeah, and I think Micah just dropped this into the chat on LinkedIn. It just like makes a ton of sense if you're feeling like you're in a situation where you're uncertain, to be able to take a couple of bips, right? Couple of percentage points, and get your capital now so that you could use it to keep running freight and like stay out there.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I said at the jump, if you are taking your whole business and funneling it through a single customer, a single business development opportunity, it's an enormous amount of risk, right? So brokers and carriers, like, we need each other out there. Okay. Like, make friends, network, haul freight for a couple of different folks, like get to know all the other people that are running lanes out there that you're interested in, because like you just can't, that like Convoy had almost $1 billion of fundraising, right?
Yeah.
Like anything can happen.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly it, right? And that's exactly it. Is there's a lot of issues that we might not even know yet, right? That are going to kind of fall out about this. But Micah brought up a really great point, like she had said, that because Micah and her husband run an 8-axle, I believe it's an 8-axle RGN out of Texas, and that they're saying that they factor all invoices now, and as a small carrier, cuts down the the current risk, and and that's the thing, you guys. In Stuart, the hobby trucker, was saying the exact same thing about the risks of starting their businesses and getting their money and everything. So it's like, this is why, and this is why I talk about financing and factoring and all of this stuff out there, you guys, because this is a very legitimate option for you to be protected as a business. And trust me, you guys, i.e. Sean, are very committed to recouping this money, right? Like they're going to get that, and they're going to put that out there. And it's like, it's having that back office protection that comes along with it, right? Because like, no matter, like, I don't know what that number is to where you have it in your bank account and you're like, hey, I'm good, I can withstand a X amount of loss, because I don't think any business goes out there and sets that up. But like, this is like, having somebody behind the scenes to help advocate for your money, right? You need to do this, because I mean, as a small business owner myself, obviously I put that example out there, you guys. It was like $7,000 that I didn't get paid on, right? And there's if I didn't have a rainy day fund, I mean, man, that could have possibly have ended all of this too soon. And that's the risk of going into business, though, right? Like, there's a risk out there of you can do everything right, and then stuff happens. But again, like, this is why you need the right financial partners early on in business to kind of help you navigate through these beginning stages, because it is very capital intensive to run a trucking company as well as a brokerage. I know some of my driver friends are going to laugh at that statement, but it is capital intensive to run a business, and having the right people out there making sure you're getting your money is so crucial. And yeah, there's a fee for stuff, you guys. That's part of life. Again, unless you have 7-8 figures of funding in the bank and in whatever, I just think that it's a logical choice to help you navigate through these times, and really in the good times or the bad times.
Yeah, and we use terms like reserve account, right? Like hold reserves aside, and that's your oh shit, your rainy day, right? That's what that money is supposed to go and do and help. And I think when it was 2021 and money was free and everything was up and to the right, nobody cared about this at all, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was not on the top of minds. And all of a sudden, there's been a lot of really thoughtful conversations about risk, a lot of really thoughtful conversations about making sure that you keep your business rolling, you diversify. And I think this is awesome. And like, it is all going to be building better businesses, right? Like, if you get out of this on the other end, you've got a healthier fleet, a healthier brokerage, a healthier owner operator outfit, and you're going to be there when the market is swinging up, and you're going to do it safely in a scalable way. Like I know you just made a comment a second ago about brokers have high fixed costs, but like if you have 50% of your book on one customer and you hire two agents, maybe you have one person in your back office and you lose 50% of your business, you can't afford to keep those people anymore. Right. So
Yeah.
like be, cognizant of how you're thinking about the scalability of your portfolio and what sort of fixed costs that you're taking on in order to support that work.
No, and it's true, right? Like the times like right now, how things are, whether your revenue's down, how like and how you figure out ways to make it now is you have to apply those exact same strategies of when the market returns and when your revenues increase and everything else, because this exact situation is going to go away at some point, but it's actually going to come back as well at some point in time. And you can't, and again, like this is all just learning curve information for a lot of, because there is no playbook to business, right? Like no matter what, there's no playbook to any of this stuff. You have to learn, right? At least me, I only learn the hard way, right? Like that's my family credo, learn the hard way. But it's one of those situations though, where it's like the strategies and the tactics that I'm learning right now, when my revenues go up, when my business grows, I'm going to operate the exact same way, man, because I don't want to be in that situation again. Granted, my amount was very, very small compared to some of the amounts inside of that article, but I learned from that moment on. And then I structured my company a little bit different about, contracts and having everything in place. And, at least I know that I have a slip of paper now that says that you agreed to get sued if you don't pay me and stuff like that. So I think it's really looking into that. And then also looking at your financial partners, you guys, like there's a lot of value in doing so, because again, you can make money, but how are you operating it in the back end? How are you keeping that money in place? How are you planning for those rainy days or those emergencies and everything in the event that something happens? Because if everything is out there and you are in a situation where you're owed money and you don't know how to recoup that money, and you're going to end up paying for it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's totally right. And I think I think Stuart just mentioned this in YouTube, Jelly. There are
Yeah.
multiple layers of protection out there, right? Like not one is the end all be all. If someone joins Denim and says, "Oh, well, now I'm going to haul for Party City, who just filed for Chapter 11 next week. No problem. Denim's going to eat it if they can't pay." It's like, well, we're going to figure out an arrangement so that we are mutually incentivized, and you're not going to put all this on us in the same way that we wouldn't put it all on you. And so there are a couple of different mechanisms that I think you should have a well-rounded set of protections. There's the reserve account that we talked about. Factoring can be helpful. They can provide a lot of services and capital for you. There's some of the credit insurance or trade insurance, depending on what type of broker or carrier you are that you're working with. There's also like customer selection, right? There's like being able to be smart about credit reports that you run, about people that you choose to work with, right? Like all that stuff is super important. And it's part of a bigger picture, right? There's no silver bullet out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stewart's thing was factoring is not really protection, because you can claim, say you have a claim and you have 20K AR with a broker. A lot of the bigger brokers won't pay factoring company until it's resolved, which can take months. And yeah, these are very real scenarios, you guys. These are
it's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
This is the playbook, right? It's like the whole reason why you have this portfolio. It's like if you're only going into one shipper and you have one claim and then they're chasing after you on that one claim and then another load comes in, you better believe they're going to play things off of each other to make sure that they get made whole one way or another. So like keep a broad book. That's definitely what I would tell folks.
Yeah. No, I like it, man. Well, dude, you were right. Like it seems like every time you come on the show, it's for something negative that's out there, but we're going to have you back on.
I feel like I got to wear black.
Well, dude, I'll definitely have you back on, Sean, and we can talk about, maybe some financial planning or what people could do to set them up for success in the new year. But how does anybody reach out to you, Sean, and get in contact with you or Denim or anything?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Sean Smith. Also hit denim.com. We have the domain name. Contact us. Come and find us. A couple of our folks are in the chat too. So like send them a DM. I saw Brandon and Emily in there. They'd love to chat with you as well. Thanks for having me,
Perfect.
Chris.
Anytime, man. And hey, you guys, as always, if you guys got value, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there. Tomorrow is Q&A day. All right. So if you have any sales or operations related questions for the transportation industry, drop them in the chat tomorrow. DM them over to me. I'll answer them live on the show. That's going to be it. You guys will be back. As always, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon. And
Everybody.
now, dude, one of